The war in Syria isn't over, it's just changed. The bombs might have stopped in many cities, but the echoes of their destruction have given rise to a new kind of violence, one that's more sneaky and harder to track. Where explosives once fell from the sky, now on the ground, society breaking down creates a void. And in that void, a market thrives that doesn't deal in oil or weapons, but in the most vulnerable thing left: human life. Peace isn't just when there's no war, it's when there's fairness, safety, and respect. And that peace, for millions of Syrians, is still a faraway dream, lost among the ruins of their homes and the uncertainty of tomorrow. When the government falls apart, when the groups that should protect people crumble into dust, the market for bodies appears, quiet, unseen, and organized. It doesn't need armies, just desperation. It feeds on extreme poverty, the breaking of family ties, and a complete lack of hope for the future. For a family that has lost everything, deciding to sell a kidney to feed their other children, or agreeing to a marriage proposal for a daughter in exchange for safety, becomes a logical choice in an illogical situation. It's a twisted way of thinking, born from the deepest social chaos, where the value of life is changed by predators who turn misery into profit. This isn't a crime that just happens. It's a global business, with its own plans, middlemen, and a supply and demand chain that goes far beyond Syria's borders. Today, on Syria's open borders, among the rubble of Damascus and the refugee camps in Turkey, there's a trade that isn't measured in barrels of oil or boxes of bullets, but in people. It's a grim count of bodies and souls. Since 2011, the Syrian civil war has turned over 12 million people into refugees, and those displaced within their own country, creating the biggest displacement crisis of the 21st century. This huge number of uprooted people has become fertile ground for human trafficking networks. The routes that used to smuggle goods are now highways for sexual exploitation and forced labor. Every corrupt checkpoint, every unguarded border, is a knot in this global web of suffering. The victims are mostly women and girls. Some are younger than 13, who disappeared with promises of safety, a job, a better life, and reappear in secret brothels in Lebanon, the United Arab Emirates, or the outskirts of European cities. The promise is always the same: an escape from the hell of war. The trafficker acts like a savior, someone who can help. He offers transportation, fake documents, a contact in a neighboring country. For a young girl who saw her school bombed and her family broken, that promise is a light in the darkness. But the debt owed for that salvation is impossible to pay. When they reach their destination, their passports are taken away. Freedom is replaced by being held captive. Hope turns into terror. They become property, a product whose value is measured by their youth and their ability to make money for their captors. The silence that follows the bombs isn't the silence of peace. It's the silence of trauma, the silence of fear, the silence of victims who have no voice. It's a silence that hides a war that continues to be fought, not on battlefields, but in the bodies of women and children. A war for their independence, their respect, their very soul. And in this war, the world has been too quiet a bystander. Since 2011, the Syrian civil war has turned over 12 million people into refugees. In all this mess, new ways of exploitation popped up. Groups like militias, middlemen, and crime networks use people's weaknesses to make money. The UN says that between 2014 and 2022, over 70,000 Syrian women disappeared without anyone officially knowing. Many were tricked into being trafficked with fake promises of jobs or marriage. Human trafficking is an economic system. It stands on four main things: political breakdown, poverty, corruption, and the global demand for sex. At the top, you have the people who fund it and the leaders of these groups. In the middle, there are the go-betweens who fake papers and control borders. And at the bottom, the victims. Unseen, easily replaced, but very important for the whole system to work. Modern slavery doesn't use iron chains. Its chains are invisible, forged in the mind. It doesn't trap the body, but instead takes over the soul, breaking down identity piece by piece, until the self becomes a faint echo, a broken memory. It's a quiet and careful process of internal destruction. The goal isn't just to control, but to wipe out the very idea of freedom, replacing it with a strong system of mind control so powerful that the victim becomes their own jailer. It all starts with taking away senses and being alone. The victim is pulled away from their world, their familiar things, their support system, their language, customs, and familiar faces. Everything disappears. In this empty space, the trafficker becomes the only guide, the only one who provides information, food, and shaky safety. They control reality, and the first brick in this mental prison is fear. Not just the fear of physical harm, which is constant and unpredictable, but a deeper fear, the fear of being left alone, of being destroyed, of disappearing without a trace. Next comes the guilt. Through a twisted trick, the abuser convinces the victim that they are somehow to blame for their own situation. If you hadn't been so naive, if you behaved better, you brought this on yourself. This feeling of guilt becoming part of them is a powerful tool for control. It eats away at self-worth and creates a paralyzing shame that stops the victim from asking for help, because they believe they deserve what's happening. Guilt creates a harmful bond with the abuser, a twisted form of dependence known as trauma bonding. Finally, resignation sets in. To survive ongoing and unbearable trauma, the brain enters a state of learned helplessness. The mind is rewired. The victim, exposed to random and cruel punishments and rewards, learns that none of their actions have a predictable or logical outcome. Resistance is punished, and so is submission. Faced with this chaos, the will to fight fades away. The victim believes at the deepest level of their being that there's no way out, that escape is impossible, or that the outside world is even more dangerous. The prison no longer needs walls. It has been built inside the mind. In sex trafficking, this psychological destruction is taken to the extreme. The body is separated from the mind, turned into an object, something to be used and thrown away. Trauma isn't just a side effect of abuse. It's the main tool for control. Each act of violence reinforces the message that the person is worthless, that their body doesn't belong to them. Pain becomes the way to ensure submission. The victim's humanity is systematically denied, not just by their captors, but, in their own mind, by themselves. The philosopher Immanuel Kant, in the 18th century, created a basic rule for our society. He wrote, "A human being must be an end, never merely a means." This moral rule is the foundation of human rights. The idea that every person has a natural worth that cannot be taken away. In the world of trafficking, this idea isn't just ignored, it's actively turned upside down. The person is reduced to a tool for a goal: profit. Their humanity is the hidden cost in this economy of pain. In times of war, even faith can be twisted. Some groups twist religion to make rape and abuse seem okay. They use terms like nikah al-jihad, war marriage, to hide sexual slavery. A woman stops being a daughter, a wife, a sister. She becomes a reward of battle. Religion, which should set people free, is ruined by the idea of control. The Syrian trafficking routes stretch all the way into Europe. From Lebanon to Greece, from Turkey to Germany, these networks use technology, cryptocurrency, and the deep web to hide their dealings. Each woman can bring in up to $200,000 in profits. The body is turned into a financial asset, an investment. And while governments argue about borders, the economy of pain thrives in the shadows. We've reached the end of this journey, but not the end of the story. Here, in the quiet of a landscape that could be peaceful, we face the deepest question. Sex trafficking in Syria, in its harsh way, is the cruelest mirror of what it means to be human. It's not something far away, a strange thing only found in a war zone. It's a mirror that looks at all of us, showing the darkest cracks in our society. It shows what we can become when the things that protect us, like laws, community, and good morals, fall apart because of violence and not caring. This mirror doesn't lie. It shows how people can be systematically cruel, turning a life into something to be bought and sold, a soul into a number on a balance sheet. And it makes us ask, what part of ourselves do we see in this reflection? What we see is what happens when kindness dies. Kindness isn't just a feeling, it's an action, a moral choice to see others as equals. When that choice is given up, a hole is made. And in that hole, profit takes the place of a soul. The worth of a human life stops being endless and starts to be valued in dollars, in euros, in power. The pain of another becomes just another thing to use. Hope becomes something weak to be taken advantage of. This system isn't made by monsters, but by a twisted way of thinking about money that grows when there's no conscience. It's the final result of a society that teaches the price of everything and the value of nothing. Every deal, every body sold, is proof of how we can disconnect from our own humanity for money. So, every woman, every child lost in this network shows a shared moral failure. It's not just the failure of a criminal or a militia. It's the failure of a global system that allows such deep despair to exist. It's our failure when we look away. It's the failure of international politics, which moves incredibly slowly while lives are destroyed right now. It's the failure of our global conscience, which cares for a moment and then forgets. These aren't just victims. They are daughters, sisters, mothers. They were students, artists, dreamers. Each one is a world of potential destroyed, a promise stolen. Their loss isn't just a distant number. It's a hole in the fabric of our shared humanity, a silent echo that blames our inaction. So the real war isn't between armies, countries, or ideas. That's just the noisy surface of the fight. The main battle, the one that will decide our future, is happening in a much more personal and quiet place. It's the war between what's still human in us and what we're willing to give up for power. It's the daily struggle between caring and being convenient, between bravery and comfort, between taking responsibility and denying it. This fight isn't won with weapons, but with choices. The choice to see, to hear, to not forget. The choice to demand accountability. The choice to believe that even when things are really bad, kindness can be rebuilt and dignity can be brought back. The mirror is in front of us. The question that remains hanging over the quiet waters isn't what it shows us, but what we will do with what we see.